Very good morning, students. Today we are going to look at the MOT diagram of the carbon. Okay, so the topic for this class is going to be so whenever we draw the MOT diagram, we always stick to the basics. So what are the basics? The basics is that we draw two lines on the either side of our notebook. That means two lines here, one on the left hand side and other one on the right hand side. So these two lines mark the extent of our molecular orbitals. That means whatever orbitals that we are going to put on the either extremes, these are going to belong only to the atoms, and these atomic orbitals are going to interfere either constructively or destructively to give you the molecular orbitals. So these molecular orbitals will have a place in the middle of your MOT diagram. So as usual we start, so this is the first polynuclear molecule that we are addressing in the MOT diagram. So earlier we have seen simple homodiatomic molecules like Li2, F2, O2, N2 and so on. So now we are addressing the polyatomic species, that is CO. So as usual we start first giving a place for these atoms. So we have two atoms here, one is the carbon and the oxygen. By convention we pick the atom that is less electronegative and we usually place it on the left hand side. So the less electronegative among these two atoms, carbon and oxygen, is carbon. So I am going to place the carbon here and oxygen is going to take the place on the right hand side of my MOT diagram. So now let us quickly recap what is the electronic configuration for this carbon as well as oxygen. So carbon, the atomic number is 6. So that means this is going to be 1s2, 2s2 and then 2p2. Whereas oxygen, if you see, the atomic number is going to be 8. That means it is 1s2, 2s2, 2p4. So this is my electronic configuration. Now I start giving place for these atomic orbitals on the either side of my MOT diagram. So now the placement of these orbitals are very important because in case of homodiatomic molecules there was no confusion. So wherever I had 1s here, I will place the 1s also at the same level from the bottom. That means I had no confusion in the placement of these orbitals. And by the way, I am also measuring the energy here. So this both the sides, as the electron gets more and more energy, so this is where your nucleus is. That means as the electron gets more and more energy, it is placed away from your nucleus. So this is the increasing energy. And also I would like to recollect one more point, that is energy of an isolated electron is 0. So as the electron gets closer and closer to the nucleus, the energy of the electron will become more and more negative. That means it is losing its energy. So as it comes closer to the nucleus, the energy is going to be very much negative. Okay, so now let us start. So oxygen being more electronegative, we will have, say, the 1s here. And the 1s orbital of your carbon is going to be little bit higher than that of oxygen because carbon is less electronegative. So let us say we have. So this placement is very important. Otherwise, we would not be able to draw as well as interpret this MOT diagram properly. So now once we have this 1s and 1s, there comes 2s. So let us say that we have the 2s here and 2s of oxygen here. Now after 2s we have the 2p. So 2p of carbon, let us say it is here. So 2p, you should have 3 orbitals near 2p. Similarly here I have 2p here. Now I am also going to give you a rough idea of what is the energy, exact energy of these atomic orbitals as well. There is no need to remember the exact values, even I am giving you an approximate value. But these approximate value helps us to remember the position of these orbitals relative to each other. So here 2s, this 2s orbital of carbon has roughly an energy of minus 19.5 electron volt. This is the approximate value. Similarly, the 2p orbitals of carbon will have approximately 11 to 11.5 electron volt. Again, I am not very precise. I am just giving you an approximate value. Similarly, oxygen, if you see, the 2s of oxygen has a value of minus 32 electron volt. whereas the 2p orbitals of oxygen have approximately energy of minus 16 electron volt. So now this is very clear that my 2p orbitals of oxygen are in between my 2s and 2p orbitals of the carbon. If you look at the energy values, then it is very clear that minus 16 is in between your minus 19.5 and minus 11.5. So once I have my positions of these atomic orbitals fixed, my next task in the MOT diagram is to fill the electrons in these atomic orbitals. So how do I fill? So all of us are very familiar with this. So 1s2, that means I have 2 electrons here. So as usual, we follow the 3 important basic rules whenever we are filling the electronic configuration. One is the Hofbauer principle, other one is the Ohm's rule, and then also the Pauli's exclusion principle. So these 3 rules we always keep in mind, and these should never be violated whenever we are filling the electrons, whether I am concerned with atomic orbitals or with the molecular orbitals. I should always keep these 3 laws in mind and always fill them in accordance with these 3 laws. So 1s2 completely filled, 2s2 I have 2 electrons, and I have 2 electrons in px and py. So just let us say this is my px, py and pz. Okay. So similarly here also you can make the labels px, py and pz. So these are oriented around the x, y and z directions. So now I will also fill the electrons in the oxygen atomic orbitals. So 1s2, and then you have 2s2. And then for the 2p you have 1, 2, 3. So this is very important, the way I am filling the orbitals. I don't pair them up initially because first you half fill them because you follow the Ohm's rule and Pauli's exclusion principle. So you don't want to pair them right at the beginning. So then after half filling them, then you put the 4th electron, pairing it up. So this is your electronic configuration for the oxygen. So now before we go further, so we have 2 main theories. One is your VBT theory, which stands for valence bond theory, and other one is your MOT theory, that is your molecular orbital theory. So these 2 theories are very significant because they explain and address all the properties, physical and chemical properties that you see in the compounds. So one of these will definitely have an answer or a reason for the properties that you see in the compounds. So for an inorganic chemist, MOT diagram is very important because this gives an idea of all the physical and the chemical properties. Similarly, if one wants to know the structure, geometry, then we immediately seek the help of the VBT theory. Okay, so now once I have all the electrons in the place, before I go into drawing this molecular orbitals, I am going to introduce a phenomenon here which is called sp mixing. So this sp mixing, as the name itself says, it means I am mixing up an s orbital and a p orbital, and I am creating hybrid orbitals where the s electrons as well as p electrons could be there. That means I am mixing up the space. So this is the concept that is being borrowed from the VBT theory. So what you call as hybridization in the VBT. So see, actually the VBT is based on your spatial distribution. That means your VBT sees electron as a particle, whereas MOT sees the same electron as a wave. So what you call there as hybridization, that means you mix up the space that is given for an s orbital and a p orbital, and you try to make a hybrid space with some amount of space in the s orbital and some amount of space in the p orbital. So you call them sp hybrid orbitals. If you are mixing all the p and the s, then you call each of these as sp3 orbital. The same concept I have borrowed it from the VBT, and here I introduce it in the form of sp mixing. So that means this energy in the s, the energy of this electron in the s as well as the energy of the electron in the p, they relatively have close energy. That means this is minus 90 and this is minus 11.5 electron volt. So the energy is very close to each other. So whenever this energy gap is less than 10 electron volt, then I would say there is more chance of this sp phenomenon to happen. So, and one more important criterion for this sp mixing to happen is whatever orbital that I am mixing, they should also have same symmetry. So here all of you are well aware that yes, your s orbital tends to make more sigma bond. Similarly, one of the p orbital, that is your pz, so this also tries to make this is always involved in the formation of sigma bond. That means both of them have same symmetry and they are also relatively very close to each other in terms of the energy. As a result, I am going to mix this one of the s and p, and I am going to create 2 hybrid orbitals. what are those hybrid orbitals? One here and the other one here. So now I am not going to consider this. I am not going to consider one of this that I have here. So as a result, you see, I have created two hybrid orbitals. Each of these hybrid orbitals, I would like to give a tag psi sp1. Why do I use psi? Because I told you at the very beginning that this MOT theory is completely based on seeing the electron as a wave. So I am getting a wave function here psi sp1, and the other one would be called psi sp2. Okay, so you have two sp mixed orbitals here. So now I am going to make the molecular orbitals. Now that I have, so there is also one more phenomenon I would like to introduce here. So whatever we have done here, this is called pre-sp mixing. So this is called pre-sp mixing. That means I am trying to mix up the atomic orbitals even before I make the molecular orbitals. But there is also one more way. I can also create the molecular orbitals and then introduce this mixing. So that is called post-sp mixing. So some literature books you will see pre-sp mixing drawn for a molecule. For the same molecule you will see in some standard reference books a post-sp mixing done. So both of them are right, there is nothing wrong. But what is most important is the way we actually interpret this MOT diagram. So that is what is important. So you could choose whichever you want, whichever is convenient to explain the properties. So you could go with that, there is no inhibition. But however, stick to the one that is easy for you to follow and interpret. Okay, so now the first rule is that if you see, the first point here is that you have the oneness orbitals here. So this oneness and this oneness, as usual, you know from your diatomic, homodiatomic molecules, these will either interfere positively or they will interfere destructively. So either constructive interference or destructive interference. So this will give you two orbitals which are molecular orbitals. So one is of bonding nature, so we call this oneness sigma oneness, and the other one we call sigma star oneness. So this is having some non-bond anti-bonding character. This is for anti-bonding character. So the star indicates that this is having anti-bonding character. Okay, whereas this is having more of bonding character. So now you fill the electron. You have two electrons on your left and you have two electrons on the right. That means total you have 4 electrons. So just fill them following all the 3 rules, fundamental rules. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is how you fill this MOT diagram. So you have got now 4 electrons filled in your sigma and sigma star for oneness. Now what do you do? The next one, if you see, 2s is here. The energy of 2s here is around minus 32 electron volt. Whereas here if you see, this 2s is of minus 19 to 19.5 electron volt. That means this energy gap between this 2s and the 2s of your carbon, it is quite a bit huge. That means these waves don't have much probability or likelihood to interfere with each other. So we have already seen this in the physics that there is always interference or matching of two waves only when they have the same frequency, when they have the same energy. If the energy is different, the frequency is different. That means the two waves will not interfere with each other. So this is something that we have already seen. Suppose if you have two waves of same energy, then they can either positively interfere to give you a single wave of amplitude more than these two, or it can destructively interfere. That means both the waves will cancel each other and you will simply get a straight line. So that means you can either have a positive interference or a negative destructive interference, but this is all possible only when the two waves that you are addressing are having the same energy. Otherwise there is no chance of these two interfering. So the same way, if you look at the 2s electrons on the carbon and the 2s electrons in the oxygen, the energy levels that we are talking here is quite a bit huge. The difference is huge. That means there is very less chance that these two will interfere. So as a result, what I am going to do is I am just going to extend this and I am going to put this orbital just in the same place where the 2s is present on the oxygen. And I am also going to straight away fill the electrons that you find here. Okay, so this is the molecular orbital, but this is not formed as a result of mixing up of orbitals of carbon and oxygen. So next, if you see, I have here how many orbitals? You have 1, 2, 3 and 4. So there are totally 4 orbitals present on your left. Similarly, on the right hand 3. So that means you are going to get 7 orbitals out of this mixing. So this is also one of the basic properties that we have seen in the construction of MOT diagram. The total number of atomic orbitals that are missing out, that is always equal to the total number of molecular orbitals that are formed after mixing these orbitals. Okay. So let us now consider the molecular orbitals. So this first you have the sigma character here. This is having more sigma character. This is having more pi character. So this is having more sigma character. Similarly, this is having more sigma character. As a result, now both of these will interfere and will give you one sigma, and also this can destructively interfere and give you one sigma star. Okay, so you are having two molecular orbitals now. One is made by a positive interference and the other one is made by a destructive interference. So this I would call as sigma 2s, and this is going to be sigma star 2s. So this is sigma 2s and this is going to be sigma star 2s. And now all of you know star indicates that it is having an anti-bonding character. So now what about the other orbitals? Now I have 1, 2, 3 orbitals here, and similarly there I have 2. So that means this now is going to interfere to give you a pi here and a pi star here. So you notice that you have a pi, that means this is your pi 2p, sorry, this is sigma 2p, and this is your pi star. So I would like to skip this 2s or 2p because the indexing becomes a bit tough when you are addressing a polymolecular orbital. Okay, so now I am going as I told you, you should have 7 orbitals here. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4 here and 5, 6, 7. There are 7 orbitals here. That means you are also supposed to have 7 molecular orbitals. So total you have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there is one molecular orbital that is missing. So what is that? So that is this special orbital that you have here. This is just going to stay here. Now that we have taken this much time to draw this MOT diagram, what is the benefit that we get from this MOT diagram? How are we going to interpret what we need from this MOT diagram? So how do I start? The first thing is that we have to see what is the Lewis dot structure for the carbon monoxide. So here I am going to draw the Lewis dot structure for carbon monoxide. So all of you know that carbon has 4 electrons, outermost electrons, and oxygen has 6 electrons, outermost electrons. So carbon 4 electrons and oxygen 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4 electrons are here. And for the oxygen, I am going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I am going to put it here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that means there is one coordinate bond between oxygen and carbon this way. Okay, so this is the coordinate bond that I have got, and I have got 2 more single bonds. That means totally the bond order here is C triple bond O, and I have one lone pair here on the carbon, and I have one lone pair here on the oxygen. And here you can also see whether the octet is complete. Carbon has got totally 8 electrons this way, and oxygen has got totally 8 electrons this way. So this is our very primitive Lewis dot structure that we used to draw for the other molecules. So now, as I see from this Lewis dot structure, it is very clear that the bond order here, the bond order that I expect, so this is actually 3. But if you look at the IR stretching frequency of carbonyl, so 2143 centimeter inverse. So this IR stretching frequency is actually, it doesn't correspond to bond order 3. So this means the bond order is less than 3. So that means, how do I explain this phenomenon that the bond order is less than 3? So if you go back to your MOT diagram, this we generally call as HOMO, and this we call as LUMO. So what does this mean? HOMO means highly occupied molecular orbital, highest occupied molecular orbital, and LUMO means lowest unoccupied molecular orbital. So this is where my valence electrons are in carbonate, because this is having the maximum energy in my entire MOT diagram. So this is the highest occupied whereas this one is the lowest unoccupied molecular orbital. So now this electron that you see here, this is having slightly anti-bonding character, slight anti-bonding character. Though we say that this is perfectly non-bonding, so these two electrons are those electrons that are present on the carbon. So this is what we see here. So these two electrons that you see on the carbon is nothing but your HOMO electrons. Whereas these two electrons that you see on the oxygen, they are these two electrons that do not actually participate in the bond formation. So these two electrons are those corresponding to your 2s of oxygen. So now that we know where these lone pairs are present in the molecular MOD diagram, let us see how do we get a bond order less than 3 when calculated experimentally. So the reason is because whenever I try to put an electron in the anti-bonding orbitals, my bond order is going to decrease, because if you recollect, your bond order is nothing but number of electrons in the bonding molecular orbitals minus number of electrons present in anti-bonding molecular orbitals, this divided by 2. So as you put more and more electrons in your anti-bonding molecular orbital, because I told you this is having a slight anti-bonding character, what happens? The bond order slowly begins to decrease. That is why even though the expected bond order is 3, experimentally we find out that the bond order is little bit less than 3. So this is somewhere between 2.9 and 3. So this is the first interpretation that we get from this MOD diagram. The second interpretation is that all of us know that the carbonyls form coordination bonds with the metals, transition metals. So transition metals, these have empty d orbitals, and the carbonyl can donate electrons to this metal. So now that a golden question comes here, both carbon as well as oxygen have lone pair. Any of this lone pair can be contributed to this metal. Why should it always be the carbon donating this lone pair to the metal? So that is one golden question that we have. Again, your MOD has answer for this. Now look, the lone pair that is present on the carbon, that is nothing but your HOMO electron, whereas the lone pair that is present on the oxygen, that is somewhere very deep in your MOD diagram. That means this is very close to the nucleus, this is very close to the nucleus. As a result, this electron pair, lone pair on the oxygen does not involve in forming a coordinate bond with the metal, whereas this, which is little bit away from the nucleus as well as having high energy, so this is available for coordinate bond formation with the transition metal. That is why, in spite of having lone pair on carbon as well as on oxygen, this carbonyl is not behaving as a ambidentate ligand. It is only behaving as a monodentate ligand, and always it tends to form coordination bond only with the carbon. So we don't have something like this. So this is not possible. Okay, oxygen donating electron to the metal. The third important interpretation that we can make from this MOD diagram is the dipole moment. So the dipole moment of carbonyl is very, very less. Okay, we know that there is a very huge electronegativity difference between carbon as well as oxygen, but even then the dipole moment is very less. Why? So the answer also lies in the MOD diagram, but this can also be explained on the basis of your Lewis dot structure as well. So when you draw the dipole moment, so the dipole moment is